I'm going to push the... Oh, the headsets are right there.
What am I pushing?
Get the headphone one. Have you found it before?
Oh, good. Yeah.
Hello, hello. I will be back in like half a second.
I'll try not to dump it on you.
Okay. Get the headphones on right there?
Yeah, I get you.
I've been informed. We got them plugged into Infinity War. Okay.
Hey, Carissa. Hey, TC.
Hey.
Welcome, welcome.
There we go. Hey!
Hey, we're live, dude. We're going.
Oh, that's what the feed being on. Let me pause that. There, we're live already? Wow.
We're going, TC.
Sweet. Since when do we need prep work, right?
That's exactly right, man. When did we ever were we supposed to prep stuff for this, or were we
I have the box ready. Did I bring the bag in with the rules? We'll wing it. We don't need rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
We do.
Yeah, we don't know them by now. Well, just gonna ask questions like what rules are there? We're gonna be like 5 and they're red, blue.
That's all I know.
Okay. The blue ones can fight. The yellow ones can look at stuff, and the red ones do.
They were more orange.
Are they orange?
Yeah.
Okay. Color blindness kicking in already. Wow, awesome.
Yeah, there you go.
So how you been, Joe?
Good. Just lots of video production. I woke up this morning and decided it was time to record, and I just recorded 2 of them, got them edited, and they'll be uploaded overnight. 2 more reviews. So getting through that Gen Con stack.
Yeah, I saw you did a Ryan Look. Was that near and far you did?
I've done, the near and far, and I'm still like adjusting the intros and everything. So it's kind of still in a bit of flux, but once I go back to school, which is going to be this Friday, once we start up again, I like most of that stuff is just going to be kind of cemented where it's at, whether it's perfect or not. It's gonna that intro is going to do, because I'm not recording that again in the middle of the school year.
No. There we go. Okay, I got my hair back. Get your teeth flossed, right? Just flossing your teeth. And yeah, I spilled coffee on her.
Nice. That's what we do with our. Yeah, I just try to send some coffee to be spilt on the lap of whoever's on the show. So glad he was able to take care of that for you, Chris. That's with my regards.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so we got the microphone. Okay, I think that doesn't matter. People are going to listen to this as a podcast anyway. It doesn't matter what they see, right?
It's true. Yeah, I mean, we really could just block it out and we'd be all good. I think. I mean, we've got one viewer who may actually say something now that I'm mentioning that they're there, but hopefully we can see some.
It's probably our lurker.
Murr would be, he's. I was like, warms my heart to see him. So there he is. Of course.
Did he show up?
Of course, man.
There he is. God, this guy shows up to everything.
I learned in the mockumentary that
a Longview podcast, he's there. Oh, Norm's here.
Hey, there you guys are.
He always says sorry. That's Norm's dick, as he says he's sorry.
Sorry. There they are. Yeah, Norm. We got Murr.
Oh, nice.
I'm pretty sure that Murr is a genie. If you say his name, he like beckons.
Yeah, but does he grant wishes?
At some level, I think he grants his own wishes, though, because that mockumentary that he shared, I don't know if you've seen that, TC, but the board game decathlon.
Oh, that was funny.
Fantastic. I was clapping at my screen. I was just, I stood up for a standing ovation, on just, it was so hilarious. I think that Chaz Marler really nailed that, and like Murr is just such a good sport to be, and all those folks that they had participate were hilarious.
Yeah. So we have the kids plugged into Infinity War. So if there's tears and yelling, we know that they've gotten to certain parts in the movie.
Have they not seen it yet? Or?
Oh, they have.
They have.
Okay, all right. But it's always going to elicit those emotions. Even worse the second time.
Yeah, because they know what's coming.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, TC, would you like to take the honors here of starting things, or would you like me to sort of try to be the structure here? That's always a dangerous thing to ask me to be the structure. It's like,
so you want me to you want me to lead the podcast with my wife sitting next to me and ask her questions? This could be interesting.
You know what to ask about. The game.
Okay,
yeah,
but
sure,
you're gonna have to chime in, Joe, with questions.
Oh, sure, of course, man. I'm. It's tough to keep me very quiet. So
Okay, so let's get this thing on. So we're sounding okay. I just got the hoopty microphone in. We should be good.
oh yeah, you're coming
Okay.
through loud and
Can you hear
clear.
okay?
Yeah, I can hear fine.
Okay, good. We're set. Okay, you may do the long
Fantastic.
countdown, the Joe countdown.
Well, you do whatever is the TC countdown, because for
Okay.
me, like, I want to be able to see it from space, but
Space. Okay, here we go. Ready?
Mhm.
5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome to a new episode of the Longview Podcast. The Longview Podcast is proudly sponsored by Game Surplus, where everybody needs to go for their board gaming needs. Yes, go to Game Surplus. We have a code that gives you 10% off, which is stackable with every other offer going on that they happen to have. Carmen and Elaine are really awesome peeps who support the industry, and they always get like the craziest hard to find Euro games that you love so much, Carissa, like Arkwright.
yeah.
Yeah. Look at that face. Oh, that's not a good job of promoting Game Surplus, is it? No. Well, whatever your shtick is, go to Game Surplus. I know that they still offer some L5R cards. I don't know if we're going to offer Arkham cards on that, but I know they offer other LCGs through their website. Joe, what's our code again for them? You remember?
The Longview one. You're gonna put me on the spot there.
We always put you on the spot every single time we do this.
I think it's just Longview picks, but man, it's
been so long.
It's recorded in there, man. It's been a little while. I think it's just Longview picks, all one word. I know that it's Good Board Ugly picks for the Good Board Ugly ones, but so you can get those ones and and then.
But I'm sure if you email Carmen, he will gladly tell you what it is.
yeah, there you go. So no, it's very cool that Carmen has us like kind of manicure. Wow.
Wow.
Manicure. Yeah,
I
get manicures, but curate. Why am I manicurate? I don't know what wavelength I'm on, man. I've had a long day of editing and listening to things. Like I'm trying to do a little bit of sketches for the reviews that I've been releasing on my Silent Coefficient, and I think that I'm in this like loopy place in my head. So if I say something like that makes no sense at all, just assume that I've failed my sanity check here. For the Arkham Horror
You reach your hand into the chaos bag and drew something really, really bad.
Yeah.
That's right. So we are going to talk about the Arkham Horror Card Game, the most recent cooperative experience from Fantasy Flight in their expertise of how living card games work, with the original and one that I was a big fan of and still have all my stuff, though it's kind of been in a bit of a limbo with a lot of, let's just say there's some sad shrink wrap in my house for the Lord of the Rings, the card game. Still standing, and that's kind of the barrier to me really entering too far into Arkham Horror, the card game. Not that I'm not excited to do so, but just it looks so cool. But I've still got to finish my commitment first here, before I can just move right along. And from what I understand, they are kind of kindred souls to a certain extent, but definitely the content is going to change them up. Does that sound like a little bit of an outsider's view in towards this phenomenon?
Well, we did try the Lord of the Rings card game when it first came out, and it really didn't go anywhere with us, mainly because that core set scenarios were really mean, and the scenarios themselves were really difficult to go through.
And then TC decided, I'll rebuild the decks.
And thus ended Lord of the Rings, the card game.
It was ugly. It was very ugly.
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
But yeah, they have since fixed some issues I've had with it, going back and looking at it again. But yeah, we played Arkham Horror, the card game. They're kind of kindred. They're both cooperative, but there's some pretty big fundamental differences between the two. but namely Carissa will play Arkham Horror and she will not play Lord of the Rings. That's the biggest difference at the moment. Although after playing Arkham Horror, we are kind of eyeballing it. Carissa does try to convince me weekly that to stop buying Legend of the Five Rings. If I dumped Legends of the Five Rings, we could start doing Lord of the Rings.
Well, we know people who have all of it.
Yeah, and
know how to play it.
Yeah, and much like you, Joe, the person we know who plays Lord of the Rings has lots and lots and lots and lots of decks still in Shrewcraft. So it is not a unique phenomenon you are describing there.
No, it's a lot of stuff to get through, and it takes a while to play the game, and then the game itself can be very unforgiving, and you need to kind of go back to the drawing board. So I like it for that, but it definitely slows me down.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the main differences too, because Arkham Horror doesn't take a long time to play, especially the way we play.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
And it is very unforgiving. So yeah, you can. We didn't get very far in the latest campaign at all,
which we'll get to when we start discussing in depth. But yeah, I'm hoping that this one will be an overview, because the game's been out for almost a year and a half, 2 years now at this point, I think.
Easily.
Yeah.
If not longer.
We have like a ton of content we played through. It's one of the few games that me and Carissa actually play once a month when those packs come out.
Okay.
But pretty hard. Although this last campaign is a little bit of a different story.
We had to take a break.
Yeah, because that was brutal on easy.
That's usually what they are, right? And then they're brutal on easy, and then they come out with like a nightmare mode like 2 weeks down the line.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about Arkham. The nightmare mode is built in. It's called Arkham difficulty, which we'll get into. Because the way you adjust the difficulty is putting more evil tokens in the chaos bag, as if it wasn't evil enough to begin with.
The chaos bag.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's just we want to get into some Arkham Horror here. Talk about okay. So what is Arkham Horror, the card game, Chris? Why don't you describe it a bit for us? You can't do that, can you?
You put me on the spot.
Okay, never mind.
No, it's a cooperative card game set in the Arkham universe. It plays through scenarios. There are individual scenarios, and there's campaigns which run about 10 scenarios.
Yeah, the way that's set up is usually by a big box, which contains 2 scenarios, and then the scenarios go into a campaign, which typically goes from like I think 1, 2, 3, 4, like maybe 4 to 5 additional Mythos packs that come out once a month after you throw a $30 down for a big box. So it's kind of weird because like with other LCGs, you come up with like little packs and then a big box. This one like flipped it around because you need the big box to get the campaign guide with all the stuff you need to photocopy and the characters for that particular campaign. And then they release scenario packs.
And those packs have extra cards for the characters.
Yeah, it's not just the story. So you got extra cards you can pick up. You can build decks with, upgrade cards. And they also come with a little piece of paper in it that explains how to run the scenario. And so you have like an intro you read aloud and you go through it, and then it has a resolution. And all this ties into the next one, which reminds me a lot of the way we used to play Dungeons and Dragons, where you had modules that connected together. So that was a large appeal for us. We're like, hey, it's like a role-playing game we enjoyed, and it's telling a story arc, and you're upgrading your characters just like you're doing in a role-playing game, but you're upgrading your deck.
Yeah. And the decks, they have pre-builds, which is good for me. And then there's a lot of folks online who've been playing the game for a while and who have done suggestive builds for the different characters. And with each new campaign, there's been a new round of characters as well. And they all use different sets of cards. There's 5
sets of
like classes in a way. So there's, one that leans more towards magical use, one that leans towards fighting, one towards, and the characters don't have just one of those sets. They can have up to, I think it's 2.
Yeah.
Except one character can have 3.
Yeah, well, that's Lola.
Lola's.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's what's really cool about this. So it is I was really hesitant to invest in this one because Carissa does not like building decks for the game. Magic burned her out, and I put the nail in the coffin with Epic the card game. But yeah, I mean that was it. She never wanted to do deck construction again. But that was it. It's like,
I don't blame you, Carissa. Like I had struggled from TC's perspective with Lord of the Rings: The Card Game because I was the one who was building both of those decks, and I was like, I got to the point where I was like, I kind of just want to look online and see what other people have done because I want to enjoy like the consistent progress and don't want to feel like I built a deck that just has no hope in this scenario because I didn't really, do my homework and everything. I try to like do it the way the game tells you to do it, which is like going to set you up for like massive failure. and
as we've discovered.
Yeah, you're supposed to like not look through all the cards you're going to be playing against, but like in theory, what that means is that you will die. Yeah, you will die. But what makes deck construction really cool in this particular game is that you're building a character. And I think that makes all the difference. And when you build your deck, each character has a specific way to build it. So like the Guardian, we'll definitely use the Guardian class, but then you can use neutral cards and then usually a different class, but only like lower level cards to build your deck with the exception of Lola, who does 3, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So you're building and what's really right. So that's pretty cool. So like, you want guns, and I think that's what makes it a little bit easier for you, Carissa, because you're not just looking at stats, you're looking at what you want your character to do in the game.
Well, the other thing that's nice is, you're not adding stuff in that you have to use this card for this other card to be workable. So you don't have to throw down like so many, like, I don't know, mana and stuff like that.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about mana.
So literally just about everything in your hand can be used towards something because the cards have multi-use to them, which is nice. And so you can play it as the card itself for whatever the text says, or you can play it to boost another card for the skill that you're attempting. So yeah, that's very handy to be able to do. And then, to play certain cards, they have a cost to them. So you have to mind your resources. I usually haven't had much of a problem with that, but you've run into character.
Oh, yeah. Some of my deck builds do not work. When I tried it broke, was a Spooky Pete's Broke Adventure build because I was trying to do cheap cards with no resources. Yeah, that didn't work. No. So yeah, building the characters is a lot of fun, and kind of.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that they captured that in a way that like actually invigorates you and makes you want to participate in that aspect of it.
Yeah, TC was.
Yeah,
when I said I want to replay Lola, but I want to build her from scratch because I used her, the build that comes with her, weeding out several cards that I just wasn't using those cards and bringing in cards that I knew I would use, and that was fun to do. I kind of figured out how I wanted to play her. And realized, okay, I'm not going to be going the route of all of this artifact stuff. So I want to build up her investigate instead. And so I just tweaked her as we played and I could upgrade. And then when we finished that campaign in a spectacular manner,
insanity fashion.
I told him later, I think his eyes hit the table and rolled around for a while.
I think I had like what? I know I heard something wrong. You want to build a deck? What?
For the next week, he kept coming up to me going, "You really want to build a deck? You really want to build a deck?" Like, yeah, I think it'd be cool to see if I could pull it off this time. Yeah. So, but knowing how the game plays helps. I would never have wanted to do that without having first played through a campaign. To see how evil the game's going to be. And I think the other thing that's fun with it, and a lot of the cooperative games are like this, is you really need to build your characters in tandem because you need the balance.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like sort of characters that will complement other characters.
And somebody else who's good at, artifacts, you're going to die.
So there are many like sort of combinations that wouldn't necessarily work.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And you can actually build. You can play this thing solo, and there's like solo builds for character, but those builds usually don't work well playing with the group. So there's multiple ways. What do you do, card game? Okay, you are trying to defeat a scenario, a story. And the way this works, if anybody who's played Arkham Horror, the board game, it actually kind of functions the same way, where you have it starts with a story, and you have an agenda and an act deck.
Yeah.
And the agenda deck's going to put out the chaos tokens, the doom. That's what they call Doom. And once the Doom hits a certain threshold, it's going to trigger something bad. In Arkham Horror, the board game, it triggered when the big bad came out. And this one, it advances the story. So you have like a set amount of time before this agenda is going to fly up and end the game.
So the agenda is sort of like, what the old ones and their cohorts are pushing to achieve that you're trying to stop. And the act deck is
what you're trying to do
you're trying to do to stop them. So you want to move the act deck along before the agendas flip. Because if you're not far enough along, when you get towards the end of the agenda, that might be game over and you've lost. So you have to keep an eye on those and how much Doom, because you might be able to have 6 Doom tokens, and you put a Doom token on after every turn.
Every round. Yeah.
Every round goes on. So if you only have 6 rounds to get through the first agenda, you have to be what your act is, what you're required to try and complete before that happens. And there are times when it's a push to try and get that. And if the agenda flips, then you're even farther behind.
So the act deck that you've talked about, and there was a couple of thoughts that I didn't quite get in during the deck construction, so maybe this will kind of bleed on to things that you've already covered a little bit, but the act deck, are you constructing that at all?
No, that comes with the scenario build. So the scenario will tell you what agenda cards to use and what act cards to use. And a lot of times you're choosing blindly from multiple ones. So when you replay the scenario, it might play differently than the first
so
time
not every card will be in every time that you play through a scenario. Okay.
There's several times, like when you build where you're starting, and you might be in a museum. So you have different cards that represent the different like corridors or rooms, or you might be in a town. So you'll have different buildings in the town that are laid out, and that's where you're moving to. And a lot of those tend to be, where you have a stack that you draw blind for certain locations. And so the next time you play that scenario, again, you might have, different setup of places and events that happen, even down to the sometimes they have like elite bad guys that are coming after you that come out towards the end that the agenda will trigger. Yeah. And those can vary too.
And then what's really cool is like, depending, and then the campaign, depending how you played a previous scenario will determine how the next one plays, depending on how good or bad you did.
And there's some, like, if you didn't, there was one scenario where you went around and you talked to people. You're trying to get information from people. Yeah. And then the scenario turns evil.
Of course, that's just Arkham, right?
Everybody turns evil. And so later on in that campaign, if you hadn't killed so-and-so, they come out as their evil side in this other scenario. And those people are wrong. They're just, And
so, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask you a pointed question that I want you to finish what you were saying before I ask it. Okay.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that what's like TC said with building the scenarios building upon one another. You have a sheet of paper, kind of like in a role-playing game where you keep track. It tells you at the end of the scenario, depending on how you did and if you didn't die, what to write down. So if you had certain things you achieved, you would write them down. And then later it might tell you, did you do this? And you look at your sheet to see if you achieved that, and that might change how the game's set up for that scenario. or what sort of bonuses you receive, or what's going to eat your face.
Your face will get eaten a lot in this game.
Nice. So, for the constructing the deck, Carissa, you've actually gotten into that. How many cards can you put in a deck? Is there different deck archetypes when you're designing a deck? Are you considering more like mechanically what you want to do, or are you thinking more like what kind of a character do you want to sort of like play out? Is it what thoughts go into your head, and what are the parameters for that process?
You know, for me, I choose what character I want to play, and we have a lot of different characters now.
Each campaign comes with 5, and there's been like 3, so we got like 15 plus characters to choose from at this point.
So I pick the character based on what their skills are and what type of character I want to play. Do I want to be a brick and go through and take damage and fight, or do I want to be more the investigator and try and dart around and get as many clues as possible?
Or spell checker.
Do I want to be a spell checker? Which honestly, I haven't really gone that route yet.
Checker? That's
spell checker.
Spell checker.
Spell checker. I thought you were saying a spell checker, like.
Well, we kind of need that grammar sometimes too.
Yeah, we do.
But
occasional typos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They happen. Actually, this game's been really good about it. I haven't found very many typos, but because I look for that. So I pick the person I want to play first. And then depending on what class type that they lean towards, then I can go through and either follow their build, or you can kind of build it yourself, because they have pretty good guidelines about what level you can do. And there are multiple cards. So if you want, like 2 revolvers, go for it. And you could actually pull both of them and one hand each, and you could go in double shooting. I actually think at one time I had like an axe and a machete. That was fun.
Yeah, so the build is really simple. The number of cards is on the back. Typically it's about a 30 card deck.
Yeah.
Plus or minus whatever stuff goes in there. And then, you're building your art. The character already has an archetype built in, whether it's a guardian, a seeker, a mystic, a rogue, and what's the red one? Survivor.
Like 6 of them ish. That's what I
think there's heard. 5
there's
plus
5.
the neutrals.
Yeah, neutral.
Okay.
And then, so it's 2. You can have 2 copies of a card. That's the limit. It's 2 copies. Okay. Which makes it nice when you're buying. You only need to buy like Fantasy Flight's really notorious for buying. You need to buy like 3 core sets. With this one, you need 2 core sets, and that's if you want to play with 3 to 4 people, because you need the card pool to play up to 3 to 4 people. You can't play 3 to 4 people with just 1. So that's kind of nice. And then you build it, and it's not that difficult. And
what's neat about the characters too that you have to pay attention to is they each have a good thing and a bad thing about them.
Oh, the deck eats your face. Oh my god.
There are weaknesses that you have to add
to your deck.
2 weaknesses to your deck, plus the character has one that is specific for that character. And then the character also has a card that is
I got it.
Alarm. That is like a bonus, like only that character has that particular card. Like one of them, who is the expedition leader, he's a lot of fun to play. He has a card that usually you can have 1 ally. So there are a lot of allies among the cards. So you might have the beat cop, you might have a dog, you might have an alley cat, you might have this dude who works in the library. Yeah. And they give you different bonuses. But the expedition leader will let you, his card says that you can have up to 3 allies instead of 1. So if you play his good card, then suddenly you can have a beat cop and the librarian and your dog running around with you. And they can all take damage for you. So if you get hit, you're not they're away as like a second level to help you. Plus they have their own things they can do, whether it's fight or give you a chance to get extra clues. And so looking at that really guides how you want to play a character.
Cool.
And boy, those weaknesses.
Yeah. That's the thing that's really,
they're so evil.
Because as the campaign goes, you're going to put more weaknesses. You're going to level your character up. And so, your own deck can like blow up in your face if you're not careful.
Oh, and then you collect things.
Oh, the man in the pallid mask.
Oh,
yeah.
He's my baby.
He's your baby.
So, yeah, you put him in your deck. Like you might pick up an artifact or a book during scenario, and they go in your deck. And sometimes these are good things when you reach a different scenario, and sometimes they're not. So it just depends on how the scenario runs and how well you've done. But yeah, the King in Yellow one.
The Path to Carcosa.
Yeah, that was interesting. But it's really neat how they've all been very different. And what characters do well with them.
Speaking of the King in Yellow, I'm actually watching like True Detective right now. So it's like I've only played Arkham Horror the card game once. Trent showed me how it was played, and then I'm now watching True Detective, which is what I considered my homework. So, but the thing about my one play that I do remember is exactly what you just mentioned, which is that sometimes you draw a card from your deck and it is not a good card that you put there and that you put there just for this moment. It is the weakness card, which is like just this ticking time bomb. But when you have to add those things, there's some like involuntary deck construction throughout these because you're going to pick things up. Sometimes it'll be good. You have to add it to your deck and it'll be good. Sometimes it'll just be a part of the story. And other times it'll be like, PTSD.
Yeah. It really is.
Yeah, because there was one where we did the train, and the train, like, we all flew the train. We went, like, this thing opened up, and we, in the train car, just flying this thing. We got a weakness card, which is lost in time and space. I remember that. That was bad.
Well, the other thing that happens is during the course of a scenario, if you go insane or if you're injured and incapacitated, it's possible for the other players to complete the scenario. And so, your character comes back from the asylum or the hospital or wherever you went. A lot of times my characters are screaming off in the woods somewhere. You take an automatic trauma, mental or physical trauma on your character sheet. And so the next time you start, you're already starting with one less mental or physical capacity. And so those it's like legacy. Collect. Yeah. And they collect. So I think we on our last campaign, I think
I had like 3
and I had a couple,
trauma.
And those hurt right out of the gate. It's evil.
Yeah.
But, and then the other thing we didn't mention is, so as you're playing the game, you have your character that you've built or used the pre-builds. You have your scenario with the agenda and the act guiding you, so you know what your purpose is and what you're trying to achieve. And then you have the room laid out or the place laid out. So you might be in Arkham. Or you might be, like in a museum. At one time, we were in a bar.
We were in the catacombs, too.
We were in a catacombs in Paris. Yeah. That was evil.
The Phantom of the Opera was chasing us around at one point.
No, that was the Man in the Pallid Mask.
Was that the Man in the Pallid Mask? Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
And so you have that laid out, and those you all start in one spot. So either, the entrance or one spot in town. And then you go through your moves so you can move to a location, and then you reveal that location, and it'll tell you how many clue tokens are there to search. And a lot of times to change to the next act, you have to have so many clue tokens. So you're going around trying to investigate to get those. And there might be something about that location that you've moved into that could be helpful. Like maybe you can, spend a resource to heal a damage or get a damage if you stay there at the end of your turn.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff.
There's throughout the game these different locations, and sometimes you need to reveal a specific location that you don't know exactly where it's at, but you have to find something specific to move on. And so means you have to get around to these other areas. And so you go through your turn investigating, revealing things. If there's a monster minion somewhere, that you have to fight or avoid, running. There's no shame in running far away because a lot of them will chase you.
Yeah, they'll hunt.
Wrong.
Yeah.
So sometimes the right choice is to run.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Definitely.
That's awesome. That to me is like one of the things that was always.
Go ahead. Each monster has like a fight and evade, so you could just like try to just flip that, run away, disengage it, and then GTFO.
Yeah.
And
the characters will have the different skills. So you may have like a fight of 4, and then it's like, okay, I'm taking them out. But if you have an evade of 4, it's like, yeah, bye.
That's awesome. That's like a component I felt like was missing in my experiences, like playing the other, like the Arkham Horror board game and then Eldritch Horror, is that like all I'm doing is always taking the madness on, right? Like with bullets and motorcycles. And I'm like, no, that's not always the right thing to do. Like,
No.
sometimes you realize that behind that door is something so horrible that it will be the end of you, and there's nothing good about that. Like you just losing your mind is not going to help you achieve the goals, whatever your purpose is. So it sounds to me like that's a component that I appreciate being added. As a huge fan of H.P. Lovecraft, but somebody who really struggled to like to marry together the idea of like gleefully like shooting like squid-headed monsters.
Yeah.
Well, there are monsters.
H.P. Lovecraft would have not been okay with this. Like, the fact that you see that squid-headed monster and can like grok the idea that it's a squid-headed monster is too much. Like, you shouldn't be able to do that. Like, you see that thing and you're like, oh my god,
Really?
and you just like look at your feet. And then you just like that's it. Like, that's all you remember. And then you like wake up with like a padded vest on.
Yeah. You're in a fetal position crying.
And a lot of those monsters, like, they do like a little, they don't hit you with damage. They hit you with sanity. I mean, there have been monsters that is like 4 or 5 sanity. This thing hits you just by ending the round and being in the same location. We're like, dude, we got to get out of this. This thing is nasty.
Yeah. And after your turn, even if you've evaded the monsters or run away, they have their chance to either move if they're hunting you. They can move towards you, so you have to kind of plan in advance. How many places do I need to get away from him, so he doesn't just land on me again? Because if he lands on you, he's going to hit you. And unless you have a special character, there's one character or one card. There's a couple cards where if they hit you, you can automatically strike back. Like the dog will do that.
The knife, the combat knife.
Yeah, the combat knife will do that. But otherwise, you pretty much just get, pummeled. So you have, during your turn, you can fight them, or you stand there and get hurt on their turn. So that's another issue with the monsters, is even if you evade them, you've got to really calculate how well you need to evade them.
Yeah, and
some bit to like how you run the deck is important. It's not just like I've got the right card. It's like, no, you need to choose to position yourself here. It sounds like there's a system of actually having physical locations come out on the board that are like either adjacent or far from one another.
Yeah,
because when the locations come out, they tell you what location is and how to get there, what's all connected to. This is all information on the card, which is pretty cool, because this card game is probably the closest to a board game I've ever seen a card game do. So like you're like, okay, so this is connected here, this is connected here, this thing's gonna come here, it's gonna hunt the guy with the highest brain, so he's always gonna move this way. Where do we have to go? What have to? Yeah, it's like this giant cooperative puzzle you're trying to work out.
And then the other trick is the cards in your hand and what your resources are. And it's like, I have this really good card that's gonna help me get clues, or I could put down my gun. Oh, we need the clues. I want the gun, which I can only do one of these because that's all the resources I have. And if you make the wrong choice, like there's been many times where I've got a weapon in my hand,
but you can't
didn't
play
it in time
because
I got hit by a monster. And if you do anything but fight or run, the monster gets a free
it's attack of opportunity.
Ooh, the attack of yes. Ooh, that's nasty.
So then you have to weigh, do I want to take damage already, or do I want to just run and try and play the weapon another time? Yeah. So your card management from your hand and trying to anticipate there's a lot of strategy involved.
And then plus
working together.
Yeah. And then you get experience points at the end of each scenario, which you can spend to upgrade your deck. So knowing how that deck plays is super important, because you're gonna be upgrading it to do better things.
Right.
So so you got to know what this deck does and what you potentially want to upgrade it to be more effective, because each scenario gets worse and worse and worse, and you got to really build your deck up as you're playing.
Well, and you figure out too, if you keep drawing the same card and you don't use it for what the card text says, and you're just using it for the skill points, then that's a card to get rid of and bring in something you're going to use. But then after the monster attacks, the really evil thing that happens, you do all of your, resource, all your character management.
Oh, the fun cards.
Get your card. Yeah, so we have the fun cards.
The fun cards. I don't know what they're called. They're like, you draw. Everybody gets one of these fun cards.
Yeah, so you go to the mythos phase where you put Doom token on the agenda, and then you get they're not exploration cards.
No, they're event. They're not. I think
we just call them the fun cards.
We call them fun cards.
That's very sarcastic.
Yeah. I sense that the fun cards are probably going to leave you like maybe with an amputated limb.
Could be.
Or that's how the monsters come out.
Or
like,
you go mad. You might have to do a skill check because what's one of them? The voices in my head.
Yeah, the voices in your head.
And so they might limit a skill until you can get rid of the card. It might do, automatic damage.
There's some that go into your hand.
Yeah.
And those are bad.
Because you have a hand limit.
And you can't say what it is because it says specifically you can't see what card it has in your hand. So you're doing something crazy, right? That makes no sense because this card is telling you have to do it.
Yeah.
Like, why are you running away all the time? I can't say, but it might have something to do with the stupid card in my hand.
But that's part of the...
You actually can't show anybody either. That's awesome.
That's part of the randomness of where, you can't anticipate. Like, you can have all of your steps planned out. Hey, you've got this monster and you're going to kill him the next turn, and you got it all planned out.
And then the chaos bag.
You get a fun card, and suddenly now you have 2 monsters.
Yeah.
Yay!
Oh, isn't that sweet?
So, it's not fun.
Yeah, and then to add on top of the randomness this game has is every skill check goes against a token that randomly comes out of what's termed the chaos bag.
So instead of dice,
you're pulling tokens out of this bag. And I'll tell you what, reaching your hand in this bag is probably the most painful thing in a game I've ever done.
The box from Dune, put your hand in the box.
The pain,
The pain. and that's kind of what it feels like. Or, there's a bag of score. I wasn't on board with the chaos bag because I like dice.
Yeah,
and I didn't know if I'd like this bag thing because I just like the tactile, roll the dice and see what happens. And I was like, I don't know how this is, hey, I get it shit. Yeah. That's what happens. Yay.
I failed. Automatic
fail.
You
still sound a little bit like you still haven't totally entirely.
No, that's because the thing hates me. It's evil.
But I'll tell you what, the brilliance of this chaos bag, and I think it has a head up over the just rolling a die, is that as the game progresses, you're someone taking different tokens out, you're putting more tokens in. So this thing's changing all the time. And
they mean different things. Yeah. So you have, like a +2, +1, 0, -1, -2, all the way up to -5. So that's like Nightmare Arkham level. And so you choose, we're going to play easy, normal, hard, Arkham.
Easy, standard, hard, and Arkham, which Arkham is like just death.
At the moment, we pretty much just play easy.
Yeah.
We want to enjoy
you're playing. I like it better, and my brother prefers this too. That when video games come out, when instead of calling it easy mode, they call it like story mode because it's like
right.
Yeah, we do story mode.
Yeah,
I don't. It's not that I dislike the game or feel like I suck at the game or anything like that. It's that like when I lose, I get the feeling that like I'd rather just that not had happened so I could keep on going through with the story and figuring more stuff out. Like I don't want to get stuck in a tedious situation where like, okay, well, do I just want to take a modified win here and just sort of like keep on brute forcing it, even though I lost that scenario, but we can just pretend like I had a few extra life points there. It's story mode and easy mode to me. Like we don't all have time to invest all of our lives into like one experience. I think it's cool that like they have that challenge there, but not everybody needs to take that path. So I'm also in the easy mode camp of people. I usually play easy/story mode unless I've already got familiarity with the game or a game system. So my main question, though, back to that bag is that from what I remember, it is like the bag itself functions largely like a dice because you're going to be drawing things out, but then immediately replacing them. So like the element of replacement that you have because everything is like always an option from what I recall. Like whenever you get something and that comes out that's really bad, it's like, okay.
It goes right back in.
It goes right back in, yeah. And I mean, like to contrast this, because what it most reminded me of would be like Gloomhaven. And Gloomhaven had like a 20-card response deck that you could modify. And you actually went through it until you hit certain cards, right? There were always certain possibilities that could cause you to reshuffle. But like, as soon as like you kept on going through, and so you kind of figured that like I'll eventually either hit one of my reshuffles, or I'm going to at least get some sort of a normalized distribution of the positive versus the negative cards and get kind of like more of a distribution and less of a wow, I'm rolling nothing but ones. But it sounds like, Carissa, with the replacement here, the bag hates you, or do you feel like the bag just would hate anybody?
It pretty much hates everybody, but it's kind of like dice. Some nights you have a good run, and the other nights, yeah, you hate them.
Yeah.
And the Chaos Bag operates much the same. TC's main failure when he's drawing or about to draw is like, well, I hope I don't draw this.
I'll usually go, okay, we got this. As long as we don't draw the auto fail.
As long as we don't draw
the
this.
auto fail. Yeah,
and every time he'll start to talk before one of us draws, and we're like, shut up.
You've made your wife superstitious, TC. Congratulations.
I've always been. I'm one of those that in college, when we were role playing, I had certain dice I used when I was playing the character, and then I had my D&D dice. I was the dungeon master, the game master, and those were the dice I used. And my players hated those dice. They hated. They rolled really nice for me, but I couldn't keep them in the same bag.
Of course, yes.
You can't mix good and evil.
It's auras. Yeah. It's the auras.
And then we had another, so the Chaos Bag operates on that level.
And it also operates like there's tokens with pictures on them. And when you put a scenario out, it tells you what those, like a skull will do something, a tombstone will do something. And those are different for each scenario. So like one time you draw a tombstone, it's going to be, it does this bad thing. But in the next scenario, if you draw the tombstone, it's going to do something different.
Right. And so the scenarios adapt to the Chaos Bag. You're adapting the Chaos Bag to the level of game experience you want. Mm-hmm. And then as you go through the game, you're adding and taking tokens away from the bag. And so it's a multiple layer of adaptation that you just couldn't have with dice as easily. And so it becomes, though I like the tactile sensation of rolling dice, the Chaos Bag is very visceral now. It's almost like its own character to us. And we literally have a red velvet, looks like it came from hell bag with these tokens in it, and got these little token protectors.
Yeah, the coin protectors.
So
we've actually
they
put little
clink.
Oh wow!
We wore ours out. We were drawing it so much.
I'm not surprised, dude. I've been thinking about getting those for Altiplano. I think it's hilarious to have like coin protectors for shits.
Yeah. But it was necessary because if they get worn, you could start, that feels like it's auto fail.
Yeah, that's the old auto fail token. Yeah. We don't draw that one anymore. Did you feel the back of it? Come on. That's the one that's all fuzzy and doesn't have a surface anymore.
That's the one that got wet.
Yeah. It's the one that we dropped in the water so we wouldn't have to draw it anymore.
Yeah. So, the Chaos Bag is.
Yeah, it's its own. I like how you say it's its own character in the game. It really is. You're just like, because you got to reach your hand in this thing. You're just like, I don't want to do this. This is bad. Yeah. This is bad. Or there's sometimes you reach in there and you're like, oh God. And you pull it out and you get like the +1, which is what you needed. And you're like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's a great feeling when you pull out what you wanted.
Yeah. and also not a great feeling when you don't.
Of course.
Yeah. The other thing I like. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
What TC mentioned with the role-playing aspect, if we have yet to come out of a campaign without stories about that campaign.
Oh, we've got some good stories.
Or talk to friends who've played the same campaign and heard their stories, which were completely different. And so, and I literally, part of the paperwork you have is a checklist to see what scenario you've played. So you just check off. And sometimes there's an interlude where you're just reading something that happened between two scenarios. And sometimes you have to make choices, or you have to read a section based on how you did in the previous scenario. And so through each scenario, depending on if one of us goes mad or gets injured, I write it on there. So we have kind of a running tally of what happened to us.
That campaign,
Yeah. So
our
that's
first
fun
campaign,
to look back on.
we all both went insane. Second one, I think we both went insane.
Yeah.
Well, we're not very good at this game, I don't think.
No, I think we're okay.
Okay.
We haven't physically been killed.
That's true. We've technically lived.
Yep. That's right. You can always come back from the reaches of insanity, but when you're dead, you're dead.
Yeah.
This, for example, the stories that come out, Carissa wanted to be the actress, Lola. And the path to Carcosa, a lot of it is specific to that character, right? Like if she's in this here, read this thing, because she's an actress who's in the play The King in Yellow, right? Kind of revolves around that. So when like the Man in the Pallid Mask comes out, there wasn't even hesitation. Chris is like, I want him in my deck. I'm like, this is a bad card. I don't care. I want the Man in the Pallid Mask. So we got this thing, and then there's a certain point where it says, if you say this name at any time during setup or finish, you take an immediate horror.
Yeah.
And so we had to go like,
so it started to get like into the meta game, into the outside of the game.
And then what's funny is the time that she invoked his name was the night you drew like 5 failures out of that bag in a row, right?
Everything I drew out of that bag was bad. I made it to the second location and then I went crazy. It was the fastest I've ever lost in a scenario. And that it had to be him. Yeah. He did it to me. I said his name. And he turned the chaos bag against me. Yeah. It was awesome. TC was frustrated because he's like, we're never going to make it through the scenario. I was like, yeah, look, I drew another failure. So, and so he got stuck doing all of the rest. Yeah.
Nice.
And you made it almost to the end.
I almost made it, and then I was right at the finishing line. I just got my feet shot out from under me. It's like, boom, dead.
That was fun. Yes. Oh, and then there was the one we were exploring, this the asylum.
Oh, the straight jacket.
Yeah, and so some of the cards in the fun deck were straight jackets. And TC kept drawing them. And then he'd have to spend his turn trying to get away from this damn straitjacket. So at the end of the scenario, we were like, okay, you get away. We're reading the end of the text.
We said for the inmates. Wait. Oh my God.
And so we're reading the end, and it's like, you escape the asylum, but you still have to get away from the ground. So you go to the fence and you climb over the razor wire. And I'm like, I added to the text, using all the straitjackets you collected along the way.
We wrecked that asylum. We were literally, Carissa could not keep. She was reading it and was just cracking up the whole time. She couldn't keep a straight face. It was hilarious.
That was a fun level. Yeah, I will never forget those straitjackets. He was so
mad.
He'd draw it and be like,
they're very stupid.
Like, is he gonna rage quit?
Oh, we shuffled the fun deck. Guess the first thing I draw, another straight jacket. It's great.
Yeah, I was like, how many are there in the?
Well, it's because I was playing the homeless guy, Ashcan Pete.
That's right. That was.
Yeah, that's kind of sketchy to begin with. I was creeping out with a dog. Put him in a straight jacket.
Yeah. So it sounds like what they've done here is they've given you 2 main components that I've always felt I wanted to see in these types of storytelling type games, and that is some continuity, some impact to the decisions that you make, some ways that in which your deck is going to change based on the story, and not just like your approach to overcoming a challenge, and also that the actual scenario that you're playing through is always going to be totally novel. Like, it's never going to be like, oh, this is that card again, or if that card does come up, it's like, this is that card, but now here's where we're at, and we can't deal with it now. Or it's like something's going to change. It's always that novelty.
They've gotten better. The first campaign is a great place to start, but doesn't have the replayability as the following campaigns. It's more rigid. And, there's some levels they're like, okay, we know we have to find this guy around here and we have to get this. And then we go here and this guy happens and we have 2 choices. So which way do we want to play it this time? So it's more limited on its replayability. But the following campaigns do a lot more where they're mixing up the cards and you're drawing random cards to build. And what's the other one we played with the jungle one?
Oh, that's the newest one, the Forgotten Age.
Yeah.
Wow.
We died. Well, we made it to the third.
We made it to the second scenario. So we get to the second scenario and we lost the campaign.
Yeah. That was unexpected.
Yeah, wow.
So, they've definitely gotten better about that. And it's nice to see how they're building and changing the campaigns based on, I can only assume it's based on gameplay and input that they've had from either beta testers or from folks like us who are playing it. And the games are definitely getting more evil. And so like the jungle one, I just call it the jungle one.
The Forgotten Age. The jungle. Forgotten Age. This is the Indiana Jones adventure.
It's really cool how that's set up. But it's one of those that we just started with the characters that were the pre-built. And that's not a good idea for that campaign. It's just not. Plus, there's some specific ways that to play some of it. So don't be afraid to run fast.
Yeah. Don't kill a lot of things. That's our advice. Do not kill a lot of stuff in the Forgotten Age.
Don't have to kill everything, Carissa.
Yeah, Carissa. This is expedition leader. Look at me,
I
Leo.
wanted to be the fighter.
Yeah.
So I kill things. Right?
Well, you did a great job. Couldn't find crap, but we killed a lot of stuff.
And then there's not just the campaigns. They've got the standalones. There's the Carnival.
The Carnival. There's the Rangaroo. Labyrinth of Lunacy, which we tried a little bit, which was evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that gives you a taste of the experience.
And you can play each scenario by themselves. They've got like set up on how to play each one as by itself. Right. But you're missing out on a lot if you don't play the whole campaign the way it all works together, interlocks. Yeah. And what was really cool is I remember when we bought this thing, I said, hey, look, it's an LCG and a role-playing game. Carissa rolls her eyes. Role playing. Yeah. And we played the beginning scenarios that come with it, the Night of the Zealot. And you were just really underwhelmed with it.
Yeah.
You're just like,
It was okay.
But I stuck with it. I'm like, let's see how this works. And we played we started the first campaign and it really started clicking. We started enjoying it. But it was that second campaign that we were like, this is fantastic.
Because it's one of those that, it's role playing. You're really, you're creating a character and you're going through these scenarios, but it's not like you're doing an RPG and you're sitting around and like we used to role play, which is basically your character. And so for the second one, I was like, I want to see how this pulls off if I act like the character. And so I did.
And it worked.
It was fun. I draw a card that was like, you have voices in your head. And so, I'd be moving and then I'd be like, what was that? And just playing it up to see how well it works. And if you can just throw yourself into it, it was fun.
You can.
It was a lot of fun.
We had a lot of fun with
She was a fun character to do that with. So, and then, talking and keeping within the rule limits of, I can't tell you what I have in my cards,
Yeah. And some of the fun cards you draw are peril. So you have to make this really bad decision.
That affects everybody.
That affects everyone, but you can't discuss the decision you're about to make. Like one of them is you have to name like an event or an asset. And if you say that, then everybody discards all their asset cards. And you cannot discuss with everyone you're playing with what's about to go down.
They might have a handful of asset
or
cards.
Events, and just like, thanks, TC. Boom, there goes their whole hand.
So, yeah, it's one of my favorite games. And I like. It's one of the few games that I support buying the new stuff.
It's quite a commitment. I mean, when you get into one of those, it is a lot of stuff to have to keep up on if you get behind.
Yeah, keeping up on it makes it fairly simple because it's like what, $15 a month
for and $30 for the.
And then when the new scenarios come out or the new campaigns come out, getting that big box is really nice because you get to see all this new stuff you get to add in. And so I haven't minded that. The ones I mind is where it's like, here's a new thing this week. Here's a new thing this week. Oh, you need 3 corsets for this
like the 6 packs in 6 weeks that Legend of the 5 Rings put me through. Yeah.
I was not happy.
No,
with that.
You're not.
Or booster packs. You guys in Munchkin and the blasted boot. I cannot stand booster packs. They're just like, here, just take my money. Just take my money. Yeah.
Sorry.
Not fun with those. No. I've never liked booster packs.
Shame on you, TC.
I know.
I'm gonna go away now. I'm sorry.
Well, Kate loves that game, so I have to support my daughter in the way she kicks butt.
Yeah.
I don't think she's lost that game hardly at all.
I've come close to beating her, but we'll get to that later.
But yeah, Arkham is. I like all the Arkham games, but the card games probably become my favorite.
Yeah, and then there's books you can buy, which are pretty well written, and they come with exclusive characters in there. Like we have a sailor now.
I forgot about him.
Yeah, I have a guardian psychiatrist that can't use weapons. I mean, there's some really interesting stuff in there, and the books are. I've read 3 of them, and they're okay. I mean, I've definitely read worse stuff. That's for certain. I mean, they're well written.
I haven't read them yet.
And what else? Then there's play mats you can get, and yeah. We got this giant play mat which tells you where put all the cards are. But I think this is one of our most played games at this point.
Yeah, we decided we need the play mat because with our table, it's hard to pick up the card to flip it over. So it's like, okay,
and then,
go ahead and get the play mat.
I mean, you like the stories. I mean, they've been well written. They've been engaging. Well, except for that first campaign. Even some of those, there were some really good.
They were okay.
Yeah, but you have to get past the core, that Night of the Zealot.
Yeah.
That first mini campaign. Just play it to learn it. Deep six that thing, or you can buy what's called Return to the Night of the Zealot, which actually beefs it up and makes it a pretty cool campaign. But once you get over that, there's some really good fun to be had in this thing. And then a whole lot of typos. I know that you're just a big fan.
It's been really well written. It's easy to read. It's fun to read. The font isn't annoying.
Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective.
Yeah, and it's got the Lovecraft flavor to it, to the reading. So
yeah, and then much more than some of the other Arkham Horror games. There's actually sometimes it sets a mood that's kind of disparaging and
and
it's nice to play an Arkham game where each scenario we're not going after some big bad monster. Right?
Yeah,
that's what for me and Carissa got so old about Arkham Horror, the board game, is that it was always the same thing. You had to fight some big monster at the end of it. This one does things a little differently, so it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Very cool. I mean, yeah, it sounds like there's quite a few things that are like sort of modern wrinkles that make this something that you want to keep coming back to, and not just, like a one-shot pony or something where like, you're dedicating so much time into it and you love the idea of it, but you're not getting it played. Like, this sounds to me like they've done what they needed to do to make each of these like a palatable amount that's getting released on a monthly basis so that you're not falling super behind. And they're also giving you like more morsels of story that just sort of mix in with what you've had before and create these like long-lasting memories that are all like sort of tied to a specific scenario, a specific event that would be like, something that when I say the name of the Path to Carcosa versus the Dunwich Horror, whatever it was, like these are all things that like you're gonna immediately picture like what was the game mechanism and what was the specific story that our characters experienced during that scenario.
Right.
And the way these are constructed is so like what we're saying is like if you just want to go straight to you buy this game and you don't want to do the Dunwich Horror, you want to go straight to Path to Carcosa, you don't have to buy everything in between necessarily. So if you have the core set, you can immediately start with the Path to Carcosa because it's just going to pull cards from the core set. The Path to Carcosa isn't going to pull cards from the Dunwich, Return to Dunwich. So you don't necessarily, you don't have to buy everything if you don't want to, although it's nice because you get the character cards that you can upgrade or build your decks with.
And you might get extra, different skill and asset cards.
Yeah. But for story-wise, you can just start right at buy a core set, start right at Path to Carcosa, and you got everything you need for that campaign. This is really nice, which is unusual because Fantasy Fight usually likes to, nickel and dime you to death on a lot of things sometimes.
And once you have your character built, we just set them aside. I keep a running list because sometimes TC plays
sometimes I
campaigns with some of our other folks. He's not allowed to play them ahead of me.
No, that's the rule. I can't play without Carissa story-wise.
Right. He's got to wait till I've played it. Then he can play it with his friends. But I keep a running list. I write down all of the cards that are in our character decks in case he wants to build different decks and needs some of the cards. The neutral cards especially are the ones that you'll run out of fast because you use a lot of those. And so that way he can play, a different campaign with other folks and we can still rebuild the decks. The other thing I like is when we sit down to play a scenario, we're not going to be playing for like 4 hours. I think the longest we went was like 3.
The Catacombs was pretty because
that one was crazy.
But and then we had to play one of them like twice because it was doing some crazy things that we were messing up.
But for the most part, it's a couple hour commitment. And then you got to wait for the next one to come out
in a month.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, okay, got through that. Next one. Go away. So that's kind of fun too. It's then you're looking forward to the next one.
Yeah. We got to restart the Forgotten Age to get the stuff that.
Yeah.
Oopsie.
I gotta rework that character.
Yeah.
I like him though.
Yeah, Leo. Yeah.
Yeah, he was fun.
And
And I also we were in the middle. So you have these allies that are not necessarily specific to the campaign you're playing. They're just, allies that have been in the decks.
Yeah, like the core set.
And so we're running around this like Mayan type pyramid. And who did Mike have? Like
a beat cop.
Oh, I had the beat
cop.
And I'm just like, hey Bob, how you doing? I'm good. You want to join us? We're kind of on this quest. Sure, why not? So I got the beat cop just hanging out with me
in the Mayan temple.
In the Mayan temple. And then Mike had that one like mystic person.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Some sort of, I don't know.
Antiqua or whatever.
Yeah, and she was like, did this where she could look ahead at things, kind of like a fortune teller.
Uh-huh.
And he ran into her. And then all of a sudden he lost her. She didn't die. He just had to discard her. And we're like, she was here. She helped us. And then she vanished. And so coming up with ideas for why are these allies with us? Where did I get this dog? Just suddenly appeared. Come here, boy. Come help me.
In the Mayan Temple of Death. Look what we just found.
And he's so loyal all this time. That's fun. Those are really
fun.
Oh, and I had 2 beat cops in my deck. So Bob got killed, and then his twin brother came to avenge him.
So like you have like sort of like character arcs and characters that will actually be related to previous characters. Like these are all aspects of role playing that I think when they first adapted what was the Call of Cthulhu role playing experience to Arkham Horror, the board game, I think they had to make a lot of sort of sacrifices to represent where tabletop was at then. And now we're seeing just like this, the area between role playing and tabletop is becoming so gray, so hybridized that like we're seeing everything we want. We're able to have our cake and eat it too, have our story and be able to play it mechanically and actually be able to get through it and be concerned with decisions that we're making while still invested in our characters and the story that we're telling, and sometimes doing things like taking the Pallid Man, even though that's bad for you and that's why you lose. But it's about the story. I get exactly what you're saying. Have I been? Does that sound similar to what?
That's pretty close. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm going to introduce you to my friend here.
This is the Pallid Man in like sculpture form. His
little squiddy tails there.
Oh, isn't that adorable? It's just a little vestigial structure. Just some humans have tails too,
Oh yeah. Yeah, he guards my sleeping.
Yeah, and we really have enjoyed this thing. I mean, we went into it. I mean, it was a hard push for me to get into it, get you guys interested, especially you. But I've been quite impressed how this one has grown. It's become like our go-to co-op for it, and it's been. I mean, it's a money sink, but it's telling a good story, and we're always looking forward to what's coming out next.
Yeah,
and like I said, as far as I'm concerned, it's now the 3rd edition of Arkham Horror hasn't coming out, so I don't know what that's doing. But as far as the previous Arkham Horror board game, it has completely replaced that.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, because we can play it in an hour. There's not a big setup. We got the story. We have the craziness, and I don't have to spend like an hour setting it out and an hour putting it all back.
Well, it feels even though the Arkham Horror is the board game and Eldritch Horror are co-ops, the more people you have playing, the less invested it feels like you are, because you might be really spread out on the board. Whereas in the card game, you are completely invested in what the other players are doing because the locations are close together. You really have to work together. I mean, it's just a tight game when it comes to achieving your directives, you know, what you have to achieve. And so you have to work together. And the times when you don't, things go drastically wrong.
Whenever we split the party up, that's when things go bad.
But you have to.
Sometimes you have to
split the party. You just can't follow each other the whole time. And so there are a lot of risks you have to take. Even in fighting, Like if one of you is the fighter and the non-fighter is getting attacked, and you're right there at the same location, you can choose either to draw that enemy to you
as an action,
or you can just take a shot at it. But if you miss, you hit the other player instead. And so there's some love, and I've been hit in the past. So yeah, it's there's a lot of risks that you have to balance.
And there's clever little things, like if you're at the same location, you can like play a card to help someone out to boost their check. Like I got this two fists, I can give you an extra 2 to your fight since we're at the same location. And
it's easier to get to each other's locations than it is in the other two games. You're not as spread out as you are in those. And so that's been nice too. And there's just feels like more to do. Yeah. It's just more.
I think it's more cohesive because because you're building your deck. You know what your deck can do. You got a smaller board, smaller set of locations to go to, and then you're not just fighting a big bad monster at the end. You have a variety of different things you need to achieve. Mechanically, you're still doing the same thing by finding clues, but thematically, you're trying to do different things. You know, so it's good stuff.
Yeah, I recommend it to anybody who enjoys the Arkham universe
or cooperative games.
Or cooperative games. Yeah, it's a good one.
It's good.
But if there was
pandemic. Well, has there been a favorite specific mission or story arc? The Lola one, the Pallid Man.
The Lola one was fun. I liked that campaign a lot. And the Pallid Mask, the man in the Pallid Mask was fun. He wasn't really evil when he came out. He just kind of hangs out in an area, and if you can go talk to him or parlay with them, and something might happen.
The thing that we like the Path to Carcosa, because there are things you get like conviction and doubt.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
And so if you got so much conviction, then the next scenario is going to play out this way. If you got more doubt, it went this way. And then plus the story in between on the Path to Carcosa was fantastic.
There's this whole dream sequence. And it's like, you'd read, both your characters are dreaming the same dream, and you'd read one section and it'd be like, see if you did you get the amulet? If you did, go to this section. And so the dream, the first time we played it, it's going to be very different from the next time we played it, because it's all built on what you achieved in the previous scenarios. And that was creepily cool.
And the whole campaign, we didn't know if we knew what was happening in the game, right? But we weren't sure if it really was happening, because there was a certain point where it's like, okay, you survived this thing. Do you go back? Do you call the police, or do you run away? And I was like, dude, let's go back. And we went back, and like nothing had happened. We're like, what just happened? Did this really happen? Did it not happen? Was it just in our characters' minds? What's going on? And the way that thing unfolded was, it was creepy and nuts.
It was cool.
And we didn't know what was really, if reality was messing with our characters and stuff. It was. We went to the police, and the police were like, there's nothing there. You guys are crazy. That by far, the Path to Carcosa has been my favorite campaign.
But we've only gotten through 2 scenarios
of the Forgotten Age. Yeah, so we'll have to see where that goes.
Promises to be interesting too. So, but yeah, they're invigorating.
They're invigorating, to say the least.
So yeah, we do have to restart that.
Yeah, we will.
Well, is there any specific character or monster, or is there any have you got a plushie design that you're working on knitting together or anything for any of the scenarios here?
I got this guy a long time ago. A little Cthulhu.
The most memorable.
I'm gonna try to see here, Carissa. I'm gonna say another thing that I think there's no way you could possibly have in your possession right now, and I'm just gonna see if you can just pull it out here. At this point, it's becoming magic.
It's kind of a meta game.
I have a plot, bunny.
There was a monster that came out at the end of, was it Dunwich? That was just insane.
I didn't get to the end of Dunwich.
Oh man,
we died in the forest. Remember?
Oh, that's right. We got to the end of Dunwich, and that monster was just ridiculous.
Yeah, that was you and Eric. And
yeah. Oh my God, that was memorable. When we flipped that over and we saw what that thing did, we were like, oh, guys, we're
I think my favorite scenario so far has been that asylum.
Yeah.
So it's just the way we played it.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
And having the man in the pallid mask keep haunting you, that was fun.
He wasn't haunting me. He was my friend.
It was your friend.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we had the organist. Remember him chasing us around?
Oh,
we went to Paris, and we were going through. We had to do something. I don't remember what it was, but the Phantom of the Opera. They call him the organist, right? Because you can't call him the Phantom of the Opera. He was like,
yeah, you can. That's no longer copyrighted.
It's not okay. Well, they called him the organist, and like he was. We were. Oh, that was pretty memorable. What that?
Yeah,
was doing.
yeah, that was well, and that whole ending to the catacombs where we were on the wrong side.
Oh God! The catacombs. You didn't have an act that you had two
wrong.
agendas. You had to figure out which one to advance. We chose the wrong one.
We chose poorly.
Yeah.
But Lola's been my favorite character
Yeah.
so far. I really enjoyed her.
Yeah.
She was challenging. She's a character that she's a bit schizophrenic. She's a lot schizophrenic.
Yeah.
So you have to declare at the start of your round which trait, which class you are. And you can only play cards of that class and also neutral cards.
And you build it with 3 classes. in
So
mind.
if I have a handful of blue cards, I'm going to declare blue. And then my special ability is once per round, I can change the class. And then there are cards that come at me that make me change.
the weakness cards,
The weakness cards will make me change. And basically you draw the top card of your deck, and whatever color that is what your roll is. And if you draw one of the neutral cards, you're pretty well screwed because the neutral cards are good and useful, but now you can only play one type of card, where the other ones you could at least still play neutral cards as well. So that one is tricky to play because you have to remember to declare your roll, or it stays whatever your previous roll was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
She was a good
fun.
character.
So yeah, she is a lot of fun, and I liked that she had that.
Now, that's been your favorite character.
She
so
really
far,
has been. Yeah, she really has been.
And I've been having fun with Ursula. She's a clue hunting machine. Man.
Yeah.
If you can pull off the right combo with her, she can like move, investigate,
God.
move, investigate,
Yeah,
move,
you could be
investigate,
doing
move,
things, and we're like, okay, was that all 3 of your turns? And he's like, no,
nope,
that was
that's
my first one.
one.
Like, okay, keep going. That was crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So is there any final thing? Like, I know that there's been a little bit of trepidation expressed in the past by people who, like this, they see this as being this huge thing, this huge commitment. Now, what would you say to people that are like wary of starting the journey of 1,000 miles?
1,000 cards.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a huge commitment to me. And I think part of it is because I'm also watching my family play, Munchkin the card game and L5R.
The Munchkin collectible card game.
Yeah. And so I'm seeing how often they're spending money on these. And we spend far less money on Arkham than we do, considering how long we've been playing it. So it's been really stretched out. Coming in at the beginning helped quite a bit. And so also the time to play, I mean, like I said, it's really, compared to other games that we play, it's negligible. We could probably sit down and play an entire scenario or entire campaign in the course of a weekend, or less.
Or less.
Compared to playing like, Here I Stand. So
here I stand in Arkham Horror in the same sentence. Where else would you hear this?
Yeah. But, we play a lot of heavy games. And so Arkham Horror is light for us.
Yeah, of course. Well, it sounds like this new, well, you just say Arkham Horror, the board game is also, do you consider it light?
Gosh, that was our first foray into tabletop gaming, modern tabletop gaming. And so at the time,
it was heavy.
It was heavy because
it is full of stuff. I mean,
it's physically a heavy game.
Yeah. Well, the rule book was really atrocious at that time. It's gotten better, but So heavy, it's long, especially depending on how many players you have. So the more players you have, the longer it is. Whereas with Arkham Horror, the card game, the more players you have, it might be faster because you've got more people moving around getting the clues you need.
But it also beefs up the difficulty,
it does beef up the difficulty. So yeah, I would say that it's definitely lighter than the Arkham Horror.
And plus, you also have to, I know Chris doesn't do this as much, but you have to prepare going into a game of Arkham Horror, the card game, because you've got to put your deck together. Like the board game, you just grabbed a character, grabbed some dice, grabbed some tokens, you were good to go.
All of those tokens, though, man.
Yeah.
Those are evil.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then all the different decks you got to put together. There's still a lot to do in Arkham Horror.
But there's a lot of, just getting into it. Like, but I build the decks. I kind of synergize them, and you're going to build a Lola deck, which is nice to get some help with that. But and then it puts on me when I build these decks, and they like spectacularly backfire. I'm like, okay, that didn't work. Let me go back to the drawing board here.
Yeah, you do have to put together each individual scenario, and it has a list of all of the different cards you use. Mm-hmm. So the more cards you get, the more you have to sort of wade through. But they're all specific for the campaign,
and you can organize them.
Yeah, he keeps them really organized. Yeah. So there is that. So when TC is like, "Are we playing Arkham?
I need a day
so I can get the scenario set up. So I have to commit." Which isn't hard.
No, but it's worth it. It's absolutely worth the effort you put into this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun if you get somebody else to build the scenarios.
Because you gotta build the enemy deck. You gotta build it, but it's not that bad. Except when you need bifocals now. You gotta read.
Oh God. It can be little print. Yeah.
Yeah, the cards get a little bit busy, don't they?
Oh yeah, and the card Arkham Horror can get fiddly. It can get very fiddly.
There are a few scenarios that
we've had to play twice just because we're like, whoops, I messed these 3 things up.
Yeah, so the more you get into the campaigns, the newer campaigns, the more fiddly some of the scenarios can be. Which, when you're playing it and you've got it set up right, is good. It gives you a really different experience, but you have to be mindful.
Like there was one where it's like, how do you beat this thing? We're like, Carissa, I messed this up. We got to play it again.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. Thanks, DC.
Yeah.
But the words are clean. That comes with the rule book has a. When you get by the horror game, it has rules of play and how to play. That's broken into 2 rule books. So there's
We've only had to BGG a couple of
times, yeah,
and that's been fiddly stuff because of the way
and typos on the cards. There have been some.
Well, there was that one where we were reading it 2 different ways.
Yeah,
which we tend to do anyway.
Yeah. And there was another one where there was
there was a typo.
There was a typo that was okay, and so yeah. But fortunately, you can go to BGG and it says we have a question, but it's all hidden, so you gotta click spoilers to figure. Okay. Yeah, and then Fantasy Flight also has an errata, which is 15 pages at this point, where it's corrected a lot of the stuff.
But yeah, it doesn't feel like.
But it's not that bad. It's not bad for Fantasy Flight. I should say it that
way. That's a very.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, is there any final thoughts that you guys would have over the entire system? Where do you want it to head, maybe, or what? What are some things that you'd like to see more of, or do you feel just in general, since you've been subscribed to the system, have you seen marked improvements, or has it sort of had varying degrees of inspiration along the way?
I think it's definitely grown and improved. I think the experience is becoming both. There's more depth to the campaigns as they've grown, and there's certainly a more heightened difficulty level as well in a lot of ways that comes with that depth. And a few more rules you have to follow. Each campaign has it's a new bit of a rule book for terminology.
Oh yeah, they got new definitions, new keywords.
Yeah. So I feel like they're doing a really good job of trying to keep those of us who started at the beginning engaged in the game, and also make it enticing for new players to come in on. I think it's easier if you start with that core set to get your feet wet before jumping into like the latest one, because it's tricky.
It's tricky.
It's very tricksy. But yeah, I think they've done a really good job with that.
And the nice thing about playing a game like this is that we are very familiar with the rules now. Since we're playing the same game over and over, we're acquainted with the rules. We know what the exceptions are. By repetition of play, we know what the rules mean and how things work and the sequence of events. So that's nice when you're playing the same game and you actually know the system. And so then they can just add variations of it, which is nice. And I like the direction that's going.
Oh, and they have player aid cards, which is nice too, because it has a lot of the basic the graphics. And
I am stoked to see where this thing's going to go in the future. I mean,
one of the things I would like, I don't know how they would possibly pull this off, but I would love to see them put together something that would tie all the campaigns together in some way. So like, a campaign arc. So you go through and you start at Dunwich and you go through all of them and you have this arc that's connecting them in between. I think that would be totally
the epic campaign.
Oh my God, that would be so fun. Because I'd start and do Dunwich again.
They're doing new things where like with the Labyrinths of Lunacy, it's designed for multiplayer. So you have one group of people playing, you have another group of people playing, you have a third group of people playing. And I was looking through the rules and like there's a certain point where you can pause. It's a timed game, so you have an hour to play it, or an hour. I don't know what the exact time.
I don't remember.
But you can like stop your game and then walk over to the other group and say, "How you doing? Do you need to use this card? I can give you this card." But just the way they're going with this thing is crazy.
Yeah,
it's so neat to see this unfold the way it is. Yeah, and as soon as I say there's something I want to see done, more than likely it sounds like they're going to try it. And it's nice that they're ambitious with it. They're not just cranking out like with Magic. It's just they're not cranking out the new cycle and new this. They're actually trying to do different things, try different stories, and so I think it's great. It's got me and my wife playing. I mean, what more can you say besides that? I'm engaged with my wife playing a game we enjoy. I mean, I can't think of a higher recommendation for any game than that.
No, it's high praise. Well, thank you very much for sharing so many different experiences as well as insight into the design and the playing and the deck construction and the curse bag and the fun deck and all these different aspects of your experience that have helped to give me an idea of what this really offers. And to me, like, I think that had I been able to get in on this type of a product here that with the quick playing time and the reduced amount of components and the reduced amount of homework need to be done, I might have been able to stick a little bit longer in with it and maybe be able to pick it up a little bit easier, because at this point I feel like I'm just not prepared to deal with anything that Lord of the Rings could throw at me. I'm no longer worthy. I haven't played it in so long. I'd have to like relearn the whole game, and it's a tough game to learn, and you kind of do that. So, but this one sounds like it's got that lower bar of entry because it does have much better accessibility. So, and it looks like it's going to tell you an interesting story as well, and one that isn't going to be something I immediately go, I don't remember that from the trilogy.
That's it exactly.
Yeah.
I still love me some Lord of the Rings. Don't get me wrong. But it does seem like there's some. Just the newest thing. Whatever's newest is always the one that shows the most like love and attention and modern charm.
Well, and this is hanging on to the board game geek ranking. I know in terms of ranking and in terms of customizable card games, it's up there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. It's fun. It's good fun. It's chaotic, but it's manageable, and it tells a good story, and we laugh about it and we talk about it, and I'm sure there's some things we forgot rule-wise about this game, but you know what? Who cares? It's about the experience we've had playing, and if we mess some rules up,
we tend to just, if it's a rule that we've kind of tweaked the wrong direction, at least we keep it that way.
Yeah,
the entire game.
yeah. There's like, what's the golden rule in Arkham? If you have to make a choice, it has to be the worst choice possible.
Yes.
It's the dark rule. It's actually in the rule book. It's like the grim rule or something. So it's all that.
Yeah, which is fun because we've called each other on that before.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm going to do this. We're like, no, that's not evil enough.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you very much. And, I can't wait to have you on again here, Carissa, to talk about your passions, like between Cthulhu and historical war games. I think we'll be hearing from you pretty soon, right?
I hope so.
We got Fort Sumter we're working on.
Yeah.
The Mark Herman's new design we've been playing a bit. We've been enjoying that one.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that will get on at some point.
I haven't had as much time to play because I've got deadlines.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good luck meeting your deadlines for your writing and everything. And yeah, fortunately, Fantasy Flight doesn't enforce a strict deadline with their newest packs, but I think TC is still living his life as though they did. Showing up in the day that everything comes out. The new pack's out.
The way's out.
Yeah, pretty much.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you very much, and thanks to you listeners and to everybody who's been out there. Thanks, Murr. It's good to hear from you, and it's always good to have you there, buddy, in the chat. So everybody else out there who's listened to this episode of Longview, I hope that you have gotten an idea of what types of living card game, what else is the living card game offering from Fantasy Flight. We've talked about Legend of the Five Rings and Arkham Horror, the card game, and these TC are just like, I know these are like your bread and butter and are making up a large percent of your gaming experience at this current point in time, and I'm glad we're getting a chance to talk about them.
And then it sounds like we're gonna be discussing the unique deck game that they're working on coming out. So,
oh yeah, good old.
We're gonna see how that works.
Yeah,
good and bored and the ugly when we talk about that.
We'll see how that one goes. This is huge question marks and everything.
Huge question marks all over that thing. So yeah.
All right, well, take care, everybody, and enjoy your week of gaming or 2 weeks of gaming, and you'll hear from us on the next episode of The Long View.